first up, give a big thank you to all of our sponsors, organizers, volunteers for DevOps Days. Thank you so much for having us. It's truly a great opportunity, and I'm very glad I can be here in front of you today. How often have you bought a product, used a service from a vendor, and said, you know what, this does almost everything I need it to do, but there's still that little leftover remainder aspect that just isn't there, and I really want it. So, my name is Mike Fiedler. I've been working with technology for over 25 years now, and I really like it. I continue to do it, which is great. I do a bunch of different things. I lead a few different teams. But the team I'm working with now, we have this vision of the cloud. The cloud is this wonderful place. You can do anything, and the opportunities are limitless. And that comes with a kind of cost, because every single tool that you use there has its own sharp edges and will cut you in new and exciting ways. So are we expected to become experts in every single tool? And it's really hard to kind of pack all that on, and this wouldn't be a DevOps Days talk without referencing containers, obviously. So the nitty-gritty secret about containers is that they aren't all identical. They don't all offer the same shape. They may have some similar interfaces, but truly what's inside each container is vastly different, can be vastly different. So we run a very container-oriented application architecture using Amazon's ECS. And this offloads a whole lot of complexity from us having to manage the nuts and bolts. It's not as fancy as Kubernetes, but then we don't have to manage Kubernetes, so that's great. But it comes with this aspect of having tasks bundled into a service as a deployment model. And when you want to add a sidecar feature, such as a logging container or a monitoring container, in the ECS traditional model, you would run that as another task with your service. So if you're running 5 services bin packing on one host, you end up multiplying all of those sidecar containers. So to avoid that, we wanted to merge and converge a bunch of them to run one per host. So that way we can leverage some sort of economy at scale, so we don't have to run hundreds of instances. And a bunch of the other different frameworks offer this functionality, and they've not made it into ECS yet. Well, someday it might, in the future it might, but it's not there today. So in order to get that feature of running one per host, I want those advantages, so that way I could run it at boot time, and then if the service changes, I have to reboot or re-provision hosts. There are other methods and blog posts on how to do this, but nothing really gives me that managed service. So in order to find a method to do that, we wanted to figure out what could we use inside of the AWS architecture. So using CloudWatch events as a bus, where all events that change in your architecture can then trigger another behavior. So using an example of a filter to pull events around ECS changing, and then kicking off a downstream flow to figure out what do we do next. And I'm showing some snippets of poorly written Python. All the error handling has been yanked out for brevity. But basically, we receive an event and then react. So by taking a cluster change, whether it auto-scales up or down, we can then take a number, make another API call, find out what size the cluster is now, and adapt our service to be that same size. This gives us the benefit of a managed service, understanding the different flows, so that way we can redeploy those sidecar services instead of having to re-provision hosts in order to get the same impact. So this allows us, by using both CloudWatch events and Lambda, to extend AWS in a manner that AWS isn't there yet. In the future, they may be, but it costs us so little, and we don't have to maintain complex architectures. It's a couple things of primitive tooling that exist already in order for us to extend it for our purposes. Will the future change? Hopefully, and then we won't have to do that anymore. But that's a little bit of how we can extend AWS with AWS. And you can do it too. Any idea that you can figure out, there's publishers to CloudWatch events, there's consumers on Lambdas, you can extend a vendor's environment with your own concepts. Thank you very much.